Lock and load, little lizard.
I swear, when this year started, I didn't plan for all my video reviews so far to be about classic re-release collections that are connected to Crystal Dynamics. I always make videos on games I feel I want to talk about in this format, and this year it was Soul Reaver, originally made by Crystal Dynamics, Classic Tomb Raider, series currently owned by them, and now Gex Trilogy, their original rise to fame in the 90s. And people who know me well enough might even be surprised I'm talking about Gex here. Apart from exploration-focused platformers, I'm usually not fond of the genre, but Enter the Gecko, the second of the games in this collection, is easily one of my favorite games ever. No, really, I know people tend to like Gex ironically, but this isn't the case. If Spyro Trilogy on PlayStation 1 didn't exist, I'd call the game the best 3D platformer on that console. So anyway, Gex Trilogy by Limited Run Games, who have a spotty reputation when it comes to re-releases. Some of them are great, some have bizarre issues and decisions. Spoilers, this one is the latter, but things are not too bad. And as usual with my quick reviews covering collections, I will only focus on prominent aspects of the collection as a whole in the video, while my text review is delving deeper into each game. Anyways, I know what you're thinking, it's tale time. Both Gex Enter the Gecko and Deep Cover Gecko are great examples of that late 90s 3D platforming era. Using Super Mario 64 as a basis, they are structured around differently themed levels that have several exits that cover different winning conditions, just like Mario handled the stars. There are collectible rewards, secrets to find, and fun movement tech to learn. Gex can tail jump, which has the same basic joy as using the stick to pogo jump in the classic NES DuckTales game by Capcom. And in addition to that, there are a couple of other moves that are genuinely enjoyable to master. All three games also have a very cool and distinct visual style, though Enter the Gecko in particular absolutely nails it in terms of building atmosphere. Despite being a silly game with a thin excuse for a plot, it manages to have a similar vibe to the classic Oddworld games, where things are cartoony and silly, but also dark and dystopian at the same time. And the soundtrack is incredible as well. First and third games also have solid tunes, but Enter the Gecko in particular is simply wonderful in how soundtrack is constructed and how dynamic it can be. It is also very nice to see all three games running on modern systems while maintaining all features and elements of the PlayStation version of each title, something that was lacking in all prior ports. Plus, both second and third games can be played in the European version, where voice acting for Gex was completely different. However, this is a collection of specifically PlayStation games. In the case of the original game, the 3DO version was the first and definitive one in reality, where the PlayStation port seemingly improved some elements but also lost some of the visual flair and few unfinished elements available via the debug code. While Nintendo 64 ports of Enter the Gecko and Deep Cover Gecko were worse in general, those did get completely unique levels that are not available in this collection. There are video recordings of parts of the levels to see, but levels themselves are not playable. On top of that, LRG seem to be allergic to virtual memory cards and maintaining the original saving methods in their releases, as for whatever reason the only available saving method is save states. For the first game, that is somewhat of an improvement. The 3DO version used saves, but as far as I remember, only at specific points. But PlayStation version this is based on had password system that was less convenient than save states. But for Enter the Gecko and Deep Cover Gecko, the save system in those titles was perfectly fine even for a modern release, and that was the way you were supposed to play it. And now it's completely gone for no good reason. It isn't as ridiculous as with Clock Tower Rewind, where the save system is outright worse than in the 95 original, but it's bad and distracting. It's just weird how basically all modern emulated re-release collections manage to have both the original saving methods and the save states and rewinds, but limited run games decide just not to do that. That, and also understand how achievements should be designed. Why are there no achievements for 100%ing the second and third games where it actually matters, but there technically is one for the first game, which most people will not want to finish in general. Speaking of it, the original Gex is not that great. It has a lot of creativity and some of the levels are cool and fun, but most of the time it's a somewhat acceptable experience for those who like the 90s Super Mario World inspired platformers, but barely. Some levels are just rude, the whole secret world is baffling, secret ending is obnoxiously unfunny, and if not for the rewind, I would not have finished the game, even without the secrets. While the second and third games fare much better in general, they have huge faults too. Enter the Gecko's camera is really bad. I finished the game many times and always keep it at manual control. Fighting the camera is unfortunately almost as important a part of a gameplay experience as its core mechanics. While Deep Cover Gecko is honestly the worst aged game in terms of its humor and writing, despite being the latest. It's not offensive as much as it's just incredibly awkward to watch and listen, and a lot of decisions in that game felt like a bizarre downgrade from Enter the Gecko. And the collection itself sometimes feels like it's held by duct tape. The emulation can break in unexpected ways, the audio emulation sounds wrong, there's a lot of crackle, and some things are much louder than they were in the original releases, even though audio mixing has never been perfect in the originals. The visual presentation of the menus in the collection is neat, but looks nothing like any of the three games it's supposed to represent. The widescreen implementation constantly shows visual bugs, and probably worst of all, you cannot rebind input in this collection of the games that originally allowed you to do that. Why would you cut out accessibility options that existed 30 years ago and are still as necessary today? Gex Trilogy as a collection needs to get updates and fix itself. It isn't touted as a definitive release, nor a remaster, so it's acceptable if there are no Nintendo 64 levels in the game, nor it fixes how bad the camera can be, or any other issues that the games originally had. But it isn't acceptable that the experience with these titles is in many ways worse than it used to be on the original hardware 30 years ago. It must be better, because Enter the Gecko is still a fantastic game. Deep Cover Gecko is still pretty good too, and the original Gex is worth checking out even if for a little bit. I've enjoyed this revisit even with such a flawed collection, but it must get better.
Hey, cool.